Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show. I'm very pleased to welcome Mary Kissel, my colleague and friend and co-host, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal and the host of Opinion Journal, WSJ Video, and one more thing. Mary,
John,
you and I have been together on air for a while, reaching back into the early part of the 21st century. And it's a pleasure to announce to you tonight an integral part of this show that we now learn in New York City, because we're a national show and we're in many cities, but in New York City, where we have a very competitive radio competition, very competitive. I think there are 5 million stations in New York, and all of us are competing for the attention of the New York audience, which is especially discerning and political. As of now, after the month of May, thanks to the turmoil in the world and in politics, this is the number one show in New York at this hour.
John, amazing.
And Kissel is a major part of that success, because not only are we the number one show, there's strong reason to argue, and I won't go into the details, that we have a 50% female audience.
No.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes. Talk radio doesn't know what to do with that, so we'll just park it there as a fact. But you being female, I thought you would be interested to know there are as many women listening to us in New York as there are men right now.
Well, glad to hear it.
Yes, so am I.
And congratulations to you, John. And to your team.
Congratulations to Kissel, who has a show at WSJ Video each day at Opinion Journal. And Mary's show today is the subject of our conversation, because you worried me today. You spoke to a columnist for the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Krovitz, and I learned for the first time, I hadn't focused on this, that Senator Cruz, leading in the Senate, is bringing a bill forward to prevent the Obama administration in these closing months of taking the internet, the solar system success of the internet, taking it out of the hands of the Congress, of the people of the United States, of the fair and equitable and transparent rule of the United States, and giving it to who and why?
Yeah.
To whom and why?
To whom and why? Yeah, you can't make it up, John. So the administration several years ago decided that this system, which is functioning, of course, very, very well, essentially a U.S. guarantee that the internet remains open and free, because the United States controls what's called the domain names, meaning that if you go to WSJ.com, you know that the internet will point you to the Wall Street Journal and not to some other site, because the U.S. controls the core layer of the
And the U.S. government
internet.
invented this, so it makes sense that it's fair and transparent.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why the internet has been so successful, because you can trust the content that you find, these domain servers that we control. Of course, the second reason is that the internet hasn't been heavily regulated in the United States, which the Obama administration is also changing, but that's a subject for another conversation. What happened in these last hours is the Commerce Department announced that ICANN, which is the nonprofit that the Commerce Department oversees, it's kind of a quasi-governmental agency.
It's in California sometimes.
That's right, in California. Right. That they're going to take the U.S. government oversight away, and they're going to allow what they call a multi-stakeholder community to run ICANN.
And that includes China,
Russia,
Iran, North Korea, Russia.
That's right, all the usual
who have
rogues.
no commitment to transparency whatsoever.
Zero, absolutely
and practice censorship and control and brutality in their own nations.
That's absolutely right. And
all right, Mary.
Yes.
What is the explanation offered by the administration as to why we want to take something that works so beautifully and give it to the Chinese aggressors?
Well, there is no good explanation. I can give you the political explanation, which is that President Obama came into office believing that the U.S. was not a force for good in the world, and that we should devolve our power to international agencies. And so this is yet another attempt to do that. Senator Ted Cruz and Sean Duffy in Congress have just put a bill on the floor this week to stop this measure, to say, no, the system isn't broken. The internet is a free place. We want to keep it that way, and we're going to stop you from doing this. I had Gordon Krovitz on my show today, our information age
which you
columnist.
can see on WSJ Video right now.
And Gordon is, among other things, a lawyer, and he made the point that the administration can not simply give away U.S. property, which essentially this is. So it's going to be a big fight. It's an immensely important fight.
And the reason they can't give it away is because it's actually the possession of the people of the United States of America.
That's right.
And you can't just take something that doesn't belong to you and say it's gone. And Gordon seemed especially alarmed because there would be no court review of this.
That's right.
Unlike the other Obama administration's initiatives that have been stopped by the federal court. Once this decision is made or somehow they give it away, we can't get it back.
Well,
and Congress can stop this.
Yeah, they can. One more note: the administration has argued that some countries, such as China, are already balkanizing the internet. So China has put up a great firewall where they have enacted great censorship on their own people. And so the other argument the administration is making is, the U.S. is kind of losing its dominance anyway. These countries are going to do what they're going to do. So why don't we pull them into our system, make them part of the process, and then maybe they'll behave better. Of course, this is incredibly...
That didn't work well with North Korea these last years.
Incredibly naive, and of course very, very dangerous because just what an engine of growth and productivity the internet is. This should go in the you can't make it up file.
We go to a story that Mary did as well that connects to China and all the other non-transparent autocracies. And this has to do with the fact that China is now a declining nation, a falling nation, economically and certainly in terms of governance. There's great turmoil. And why? Who did you speak to, Mary?
I spoke to Ruchir Sharma, who is the head of emerging markets at Morgan Stanley Investment Management. Ruchir manages an awful lot of money, and he's a very astute observer of world affairs. He's also very data-driven, and he has a team that is devoted to looking at trends. And he has written a new book called The Rise and Fall of Great Nations, where he looked at the record of autocracies like China versus democracies like the United States. And what he found was that whereas you can get high growth rates from autocracies who may happen in or stumble into doing the right thing, like, for example, China did in the early 1980s, where they liberalized agriculture, they opened up to international trade, they lowered tax rates, all good things.
They trusted markets.
Right.
They allowed for a free enterprise.
Right. And they grew exponentially. Right. Huge gains. Millions and millions of people lifted out of poverty. The problem is that those gains are often short-lived, and in democracies, you have a much more stable and sustainable rate of growth. You don't have these big yo-yos. And China, unfortunately, is falling down, is on the down cycle today for many reasons, John. Just to name a few, their debt-fueled stimulus binge that they embarked on after 2008. They have a declining population thanks to their now two-child policy. They have closed areas up to foreign trade through onerous regulation and anti-competition policy, any number of reasons. But what it shows is that when you see these adulatory articles about autocracies, countries like China.
Or Japan Incorporated, remember that?
Or
from
Japan,
the 1980s?
that's
yes,
right,
yes.
Japan Incorporated.
Right.
You have to look at it with a big grain of salt, and you have to be skeptical, because ultimately we know what creates economic growth. It's where you have a rule of law, property rights, and you give people the freedom to start businesses and succeed, or start businesses and fail and start again.
I want to emphasize the fail, Mary, because I've been reading a colleague of ours, John Tamney, has a new book about who needs the Fed. But in there, I learned that one of the major components of the success of capitalism is failure, which we come to as creative destruction. Creative destruction means that the models, the businesses, the people who do well accelerate, and the people who do not do well, they break up, and then the successful ones take advantage of that workforce or those models. In other words, we take what didn't work and reorganize it and create again with it. And the Chinese model, because it's dominated by top-down command, they don't allow failure. Hence, everybody is held together with the same understanding.
Of course, and capitalism is also the only system that serves the 99% that the political left likes to talk about, because if a company makes a product that no one wants to buy, or if it's a product that's inferior, or God forbid, a product that's dangerous, no one's going to buy it.
Right.
And the company won't exist. They won't make money. They will go bankrupt. So capitalism is the system that serves the greatest number of people for the lowest cost at the greatest efficiency and the lowest price.
Adapts quickly as well.
That's right.
To conditions, to the markets, to the trends, and we're very good consumers. Mary Kissel, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal and the host of Opinion Journal, and my co-host on the number one show.
The number one show. Congratulations, John.
This is John Batchelor.